All right. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shekidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. What I have last time, I made a note that we finished chapter 13. We had read verses 8 through 25 to the end of the chapter, but we didn't read the commentary on the page, and we didn't read altar either. So let me just read it in English, 8 to 25, and then we'll do the commentary. Then Manoach entreated the Lord and said, this is, Manoach and the unnamed wife who have seen an angel who has told them that in a year's time they'll have a baby. Then Manoach entreated the Lord and said, O Lord, I pray thee, let the man of God whom thou didst send come again unto us, and teach us what we shall do unto the child that shall be born. And God hearkened to the voice of Manoach, and the angel of God came again unto the woman as she sat in the field, but Manoach, her husband, was not with her. And the woman made haste and ran and told her husband and said unto him, Behold, the man hath appeared unto me that came unto me that day. And Manoach arose and went after his wife and came to the man and said unto him, Art thou the man that spokest unto the woman? And he said, I am. And Manoach said, Now when thy word cometh to pass, what shall be the rule for the child, and what shall be done with him? And the angel of the Lord said unto Manoach, Of all that I said unto the woman, let her beware. She may not eat of anything that cometh of the grapevine, neither let her drink wine or strong drink, nor eat any unclean thing. All that I have commanded her, let her observe. And Manoach said unto the angel of the Lord, I pray thee, let us detain thee, that we may make ready a kid for thee. And the angel of the Lord said unto Manoach, Though thou detain me, I will not eat of thy bread. And if thou wilt make ready a burnt offering, thou must offer it unto the Lord. For Manoach knew not that he was an angel of the Lord. And Manoach said unto the angel of the Lord, What is thy name, that when thy words come to pass, we may do thee honor? And the angel of the Lord said unto him, Wherefore askest thou after my name, seeing it is hidden? So Manoach took the kid with the meal offering and offered it up unto the rock unto the Lord. And the angel did wondrously, and Manoach and his wife looked on. For it came to pass, when the flame went up toward heaven from off the altar, that the angel of the Lord ascended in the flame of the altar. And Manoach and his wife looked on, and they fell on their faces to the ground. But the angel of the Lord did no more appear to Manoach or to his wife. Then Manoach knew that he was the angel of the Lord. And Manoach said unto his wife, We shall surely die, because we have seen God. But his wife said unto him, If the Lord were pleased to kill us, he would not have received a burnt offering and a meal offering at our hand. Neither would he have shown us all these things, nor would at this time have told such things as these. And the woman bore a son, and called his name Samson. And the child grew, and the Lord blessed him. And the Spirit of the Lord began to move in Machane Dan, between Sora and Eshtaol. Okay, there's not much commentary on this. Back to page 265, the right-hand side, that shall be born. The angel's instructions had been to the woman, apart from the child's hair remaining uncut. Manoach therefore requested more details about the child's special upbringing. That day, literally on the day, the memorable day, went after his wife, followed her advice. Rule, literally judgment, how shall we act towards him? Of all that I said, apparently the angel ignored Manoach's request as regards the child, but the reply is to be inferred from the context. It amounted to this: For the present, you need no instruction about the child. The important point is that the mother should obey the command that I gave her.
I have a question about line
Yes.
14. Okay, why is it saying that you may not it, may not eat anything that cometh of the grapevine. I mean,
Yeah. So
that's,
it means not just to drink wine, but also to eat grapes
so you
or,
can't, or juice. I thought the whole point
right.
was that when you can't, uh, drink wine to make kiddush, you use grape juice. So
Oh,
that's why.
but when you're a Nazarite, you can't have any grape products at all. And yes, you're supposed to do kiddush over wine or grape juice, but you can do kiddush over anything except for water. You can do it over food or drink of any kind. It's just that the blessing would be different. So that's a tricky thing. For example, Manischewitz makes blackberry wine, right?
Yeah.
Like if you look for it, they have Concord grape and they also have blackberry. But in little type there on the front label, it says two Hebrew words: Bir chato shehakol. The blessing for this is shehakol. So in other words, if you buy blackberry wine as opposed to the Concord grape, you can't say Borei Priagafen over it because it's from blackberries and not from grapes. So just have to know that the bracha is different. So that's all.
Mhm.
So like, if you do kiddush on Friday night over orange juice, let's say, or over scotch or vodka, the blessing is not Borei Priagafen. It's still the whole kiddush blessing. The whole prayer is the same, except for Borei Priagafen. You'd say instead Sha'akol Niya Bidvaro, or if it's 100% fruit juice, then it would be Borei Priya Eitz, something like that. So it's not a big deal that for a Nazarite that they avoid all grape products.
But the
Okay.
blessing of a wine is for fruit of the vine. Is that the literal what is the?
Yes, yes.
Okay,
So
there are other blackberries. Don't blackberries
wine is,
have
I
vines?
know, grapes are special because of um, most commonly and anciently produced wine. Yes, people made alcohol from other things too, but the idea, it just highlights um, how special wine is, how great products are, and also, it's a special bracha for bread as opposed to other food, eggs, fish, meat, chicken. Lots of things are just shehakol niya bidvaro, but there are certain foods that have a special blessing attached to them. And also all products made with grain that is not bread. So like cake and crackers and things like that also have a special bracha. So
No, but I meant that it's the fruit of the vine. Is that's the literal translation, right?
yes,
So there are other fruits that grow in a vine. Could you not use that?
nope,
Oh,
no. Well, it's a grapevine. So gafen is grapevine as opposed to the vine
vine.
that a strawberry or a blackberry grows on, and I don't know the word for that. Well, though, actually, the word for that kind of berry is toot, tough, vav, tough. So, but the word for that, so actually, for vines, it would be Borei Priha Adama, that grows out of the ground. So even, I don't know if blackberries and strawberries are technically a fruit. They don't have the blessing for fruit that grows on a tree. They have the blessing for produce that comes from the ground. It's complicated. Okay.
Amazing what you learn in Torah class, in Bible class.
Well, in yeshiva, they have instead of a spelling bee, they have a bracha bee, where they would have tests, So if you're eating a bowl of cereal with milk in it, what's the bracha you say? Do you say the bracha for milk or do you say the bracha for cereal? That would be that kind of blessing. So, it all depends on the majority. What's the biggest taste? What's the predominant taste that you have? And that's the blessing that you say. Okay. 15 in the commentary on 266. Let us detain thee. Come, into the house and accept our hospitality, the verb expressing the urgency of the invitation. Rashi renders, let us bring you in. Bread, in the wider sense of food, unto the Lord, because many of his contemporaries were offering to idols, hence the warning. For that, in other words, make sure you're offering this to God with a capital G and not some other God with a lowercase g. For, had Manoach been certain that he was speaking to an angel, he would not have offered him food. Perhaps Manoach made the request to assure himself on the point, and then used a further test by inquiring about his name. What, literally who, the person being equated with his name. Do thee honor by the bestowal of a handsome reward. The verb kibed is employed similarly in Numbers 22:17.
I don't understand. If
And
you
that
know,
he would give a reward. He would want to give a reward in a year's time to this man, who he thinks is a man, not an angel. Thanks for this omen that it all worked out according to plan. Let me thank you with this gift.
no, but he said he wouldn't have offered food if he had thought he was an angel.
Right. So the fact that he offered him food shows that he didn't know it was an angel.
But angels can eat, can they not? What about the three angels with Abraham?
Which I mentioned last time, but it doesn't say there that they ate. They didn't refuse Abraham and Sarah preparing the food, but it doesn't say in the Torah that they ate. So Barry, we're finishing I had a note last time we had to do the commentary on verses 8 to 25 of chapter 13 in Judges. So we're up to 267 on the bottom, the right-hand side now, verse 18. Hidden, ineffable, and incomprehensible. When the flame went up, see chapter 6:21. Then, when Manoach saw the angel ascend the flame, surely dies, see on 6:22. So we're on 268 on the left, told such things as these, namely the rearing of the child, which will be their responsibility. This would be impossible if they were to die. Samson, the etymology of the name is doubtful, the most probable being a derivation from Shemesh, sun, perhaps the sunny one. The Spirit of the Lord, an irresistible impulse accompanied by unusual physical strength. See Kimchi. Move, literally strike as a bell. The meaning is agitate, influence. Machane Dan, near Kiryat Ye'arim. According to Kimchi, it was the spot where the Danites camped on their way to take Laish. Tzara, see on verse 2. Eshtaol, often associated with Tzara, see Joshua 15 and 20 and 19. Nearly 2 miles to the east of it on the borders of Dan and Judah. Okay, remember, this is a time where Dan was located in central Israel, near the coast and near Judah, as opposed to where they ended up being in the far north of Israel. Okay, so to ancient Israel now on page 175, the commentary here, beginning on the bottom of the page with on verse 9. And God heeded Manoach's voice, and the messenger of God came again to the woman. In fact, God does not send a response to the two of them, come again to us, as Manoach asked, but only to the woman who was alone in the field. This version of the Annunciation type scene systematically sidelines the man who really doesn't grasp what's going on. 176, during the day. This slightly obscure phrase evidently refers to the day before. His acts, the Hebrew uses a singular. From all that I said to the woman, she must guard herself. There is a little note of annoyance in these words. After all, I already explained to your wife what should be done about the child. And so why are you being so obtuse as to ask me to repeat myself? As a matter of fact, the celestial messenger does not directly answer Manoach's question about what will be the conduct of the child, because everything he says pertains to the restrictions that the future mother must observe. It's probably implied that all these restrictions must be followed by the son as well. The most striking aspect of this response to Manoach is a crucial omission. No word is said about not cutting the hair, as though this were a secret shared between the divine messenger and the woman that neither will entrust to Manoach. In the ensuing story, it's the secret of Samson's indomitable strength that, when revealed to a woman, brings about his downfall. I cannot eat of your food. The word for food here is literally bread, but because the proffered meal is kid's meat, the literal translation could be confusing. The alimentary ground rules, one should note, for divine beings have changed. In Genesis 18, God and his two supernatural companions partake of the feast that Abraham prepares for them. Okay, so maybe it does say there that they ate. For Manoach did not know. Even at this late point in the story, he still doesn't get it. And thus he goes on to ask for the name of the mysterious stranger, so that after the birth of the child, he can find a way to pay honor to the bearer of the good tidings. A mystery, the Hebrew root of this term is the same as the verb for performing a wonder in the next verse. The other, the Hebrew simply says he. This translation is meant to avoid the erroneous notion that it is Manoach who is performing the wonder. The Lord's messenger went up in the flame of the altar. Of all the Annunciation scenes, only here does the bringer of the Annunciation disappear into the heavens in a column of flame. That pyrotechnic exit, of course, points to the supernatural character of the child to be born. But even more strategically, it announces the motif of fire that will recur in Samson's story. At the end, even when fire is not present, either literally or in the figurative language of the story, it remains as a powerful analog for Samson, the hero who blindly sows destruction like fire. And the Lord's messenger appeared no more. This clause could equally mean that he disappeared from their sight and that he did not again come to them. Then Manoach knew. It takes all this to get him finally to recognize the real identity of the bearer of the tidings.
Two questions.
Yeah.
She knew all along it was an angel, the wife?
It seems that way.
Okay. Now, during her pregnancy, she treats herself like as a Nazarite would treat himself.
Right.
But after the birth.
Right. It's only for her pregnancy that she has to be a Nazarite. I think that was clear.
Was that clear?
I think it was.
It just occurred to me.
So it just says, guard yourself, pray, drink no wine or strong drink, and eat no unclean thing, for you are about to conceive and bear a son, and no razor shall touch his head, for the lad shall be a Nazarite of God from the womb. So you just have to be, I think it's clear that you have to be a Nazarite to kind of make him a Nazarite from conception, but you don't have to continue to be a Nazarite. It doesn't, so it's not exactly clear, but I think that's it's implied.
Right, but Jonah,
go ahead.
questions?
Yep.
So here that when after the angel go, they bowed down, right? The two of them together. She never did that before on her own, right?
Did she? No, it doesn't say that she did.
Right. So she's just taking her husband's lead maybe on that.
It's possible. Manoach said to her, we are doomed to die, and a woman. Yes. Well, and they fell on their faces. It doesn't say exactly who. It seems like both of them did it spontaneously on their own, as opposed to him bowing first and then her bowing along after. So, Okay, 178 to finish up here. 23. Had the Lord desired to put us to death, he would not have taken from our hand burnt offering and grain offering, nor would he have shown us all these things. As her husband quails in terror, she calmly points out to him with impeccable logic that God could scarcely have intended to kill them for beholding a divine creature if he went to all the trouble of conveying to them instructions about their promised son. The Annunciation type scene is fundamentally matriarchal, the revelations being vouchsafed to the future mother, but here we're given a virtually satiric version of the Annunciation, highlighting male obtuseness and the good sense of the woman. This scene thus becomes a perfect prelude to the story of a brawny male hero whose lapses of judgment in regard to women entangle him in repeated difficulties and ultimately destroy him. So that's interesting, just as a literary motif in the story. The husband who is obtuse, and then Samson, who allows himself to be tempted by women. Samson, though the own suffix shimshon of the Hebrew Shimshon is used for quite a few biblical names, it could also be related to own potency, making the name suggest son of potency. Some scholars have conjectured that behind this figure there might be traditions about a solar deity. In any case, the link with the sun is another warrant for the fire motif. In terms of mythological patterns, this figure also bears some resemblance to Hercules, a muscular hero who performs arduous labors. Drive him. Now at last we get the descent of the Spirit on the judge, but the carefully chosen verb is unique to Samson. It means more literally to pound, pulsate within him, and neatly adumbrates his career of intermittent violent action. So that's the word lefa'amo in the Hebrew, and 25 began to move him. So here, Spirit of God began to drive him. So that's why the commentary back on 268 in this edition relates it to the word pa'amon, which is a bell. So the clanging of the bell, or the pealing of the bell, so that insistent kind of beat is this idea that there's something insistent ringing in him, driving him. Okay, so let's read chapter 14. Let's see how far we get. There are 20 sentences in the chapter, so we'll see. Let's read the first four verses. Vayered Shimshon Timnata, Vayar Isha betimnata mi benot Plishtim. So Samson went down to Timnah. So we'll see in the commentary where it suggests Timnah is. Timnah in modern Israel today is on the way to Eilat. So that's way south. So it's unclear if this Timnah is that Timnah, because you're really leaving the boundaries of the land of Israel if you're going to that Timnah, because that Timnah is kind of in Nabatean territory or Moabite territory. Okay, so he goes down to Timnah. He finds a woman there in Timnah from the daughters of the Philistines. That also, the Philistines, they weren't down that south in the Timnah that I'm thinking of. But we'll get to the commentary soon. 2, Vaya'al, Vayaged la'aviv, ule'imo, Vayomer, Isha ra'iti betimnata mi benot Plishtim, va'ata kechu otali le'isha. So he went up and told his father and mother and said, I have found a woman in Timnah from the women of the Philistines, and now please, or therefore, or take her for me as a wife, like arrange for me to be able to marry her. So the parents now have a typical response. Vayomer lo avi ve'imo, ha'ein bivnot achecha uvechol ami isha, ki ata holech lekachat isha miplishtim ha'arelim. Vayomer Shimshon el aviv, ota kachli, ki hi yashra ve'enai. So this is the typical conversation that parents have with their children. So his father and mother said to him, aren't there enough women from among your brothers and sisters and all of my people that you have gone to take a woman from the uncircumcised Philistines? Right? Couldn't you find a nice Jewish girl? Why did you have to go and find a Philistine woman? And Shimshon says to his father, take her from me because she has found favor in my eyes, or she pleases me. But just Yashra ve'enai. She's like, she seems perfect to me in my eyes. I just, I'm in love with her. There's no Jewish woman or Israelite woman that I've fallen in love with. 4. Va'avi v'imo lo yad'u ki me Adonai hi ki to'ana hu mevakesh mi plishtim uva'etahi plishtim moshlim b'Yisrael. And his father and mother did not know that it was from God. In other words, the fact that he fell in love with this Philistine woman was all part of God's plan. How so? Ki to'ana hu mevakesh mi plishtim. For he sought an occasion against the Philistines. Like, what would be a reason to be able to infiltrate the Philistine people and to defeat them? So the fact that Samson fell in love with a Philistine woman is a way in to be able to, as a strategy to be able to defeat the Philistines. And in that time, the verse ends, the Philistines were ruling over Israel. Okay, so this love story or this romantic encounter becomes a whole plot for Israelite defeat of the Philistines. Yes, Barry.
Well, just like your class yesterday, it seems to be the same concept that no matter what happens, whether it's the Holocaust, October 7th, or this, that it's basically ordained, it's God's plan. It's a very fatalistic approach to say, what are you going to do? It's not to say that you don't take actions, you don't have reactions, but that the ultimate way the story ends will be determined by some higher power.
Yes. So, the challenge is that the Bible is filled with stories of God answering prayer or getting involved on God's own. And the point of the stories of the Bible is that the people recognize that events are playing out as if God is involved in a story. Okay? And so what we have in 2,500 years past the time of the Bible is that there are people over the centuries who have understood that events have taken place as if God has made it happen, but more so, it's the case that most people do not recognize that as being the case, or that it's just too unbearable to imagine that God would have caused that to happen. So, you just look at the Holocaust. How can you say, if you play along with this idea, God intervenes? Well, okay, then God intervened and had 6 million Jews be killed by the Nazis, to only 3 years later intervene and cause the state of Israel to be born. So, you can apply this theology to events and to our personal lives today. It's just that it's a theologically challenging, it is a challenging theology to have, right? But there is no one theology that is good all the time. Because if there was, then maybe there'd be a lot more people believing in God. So,
Except the concept of who am I to try to understand God's thinking?
well, there's that too. There's that too. So if it's just too impossible to accept that God did it, you can just say, well, it's a mystery and we're only here on earth for 120 years if we're lucky. God's eternal. God knows best. Yeah, and that's also hard to accept. But, you know, if you're Orthodox, you kind of, I don't know, there's no test when one joins an Orthodox, conservative, or Reformed synagogue to say that you have to abide by the ideology of the movement in order to be a member. So I'm sure there are a good number of people who belong to Orthodox synagogues who don't subscribe to this traditional theology, but other things about Orthodoxy make sense to them. So, you know, you pick and choose, and maybe in Orthodox you're picking and choosing less than you are in other denominations, but we do the best we can to make sense of life today, right? In order to get up in the morning and say, okay, there's reason for me to go about my business today.
Right. So some right, in the Orthodoxy, it's less, I guess, acceptable to question. I mean, some of them do also, and then so some you can have your theology, which is challenging, and still question it, and still go along with it as best you can.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It depends what kind of Orthodox you are. You know, the more open Orthodox, as they're called, more of a tendency to be able to ask questions about theology of the rabbi and to enter into discussions with the rabbi about that. Whereas the more ultra-Orthodox one becomes, the less of a discussion it is, but rather here's what the Rebbe says, and this is what you do, and this is what you believe. So, yeah, it's all a mindset as well. You know, what our personality is and what makes sense to us in the moment or for those few years. You know, this is what you need in life in order to find meaning, and maybe black and white is what we need, or maybe gray is what we need. And a lot of people shift from within religion and also out of religion and maybe come back in again. Yes, Barry.
It's also that concept is very similar to Buddhism. And I'm reminded there's a very well-known story, which I always knew as a Hasidic story until a couple of friends of mine started sharing it as a Buddhist story. But I knew the Hasidic version about the peasant farmer who, you know, I guess, he gets a horse and the horse breaks his leg and everybody says, oh, this is terrible. You won't be able to plow. And then then the son gets drafted, but because it's his son whose leg is broken, but because his son's leg is broken, he doesn't get drafted in the army, and it's all these things. And of course, the farmer keeps saying, well, it's for the best. It's for the best.
Right.
It's a very similar concept.
Yeah. Right. Accepting, but it's a matter of acceptance. And yeah, I guess that's a Buddhist concept of the little bit I know about Buddhism. Yeah. And so, traditional Judaism has that idea too. It's acceptance because it's acceptance with the proviso that it's God's will. So that's how you're accepting it. So I don't know in Buddhism if it's like that. The matter of acceptance is a whole philosophy kind of thing. But in Judaism, it's a religious idea. You're accepting it because you understand it's God's will. So, okay, so let's look at the commentary here on these first 4 verses. Back to 268 went down, coming from his home in Sora, which was situated on a higher elevation. Samson had to descend to Timnah. Timnah, generally identified with the ruined site of Tibneh, near the modern village of that name, about 3.5 miles southwest of Tzara. It is 740 feet above sea level. The place is mentioned in Genesis 38, Joshua 15, and 2 Chronicles. Okay, so it's a different Timnah than I was talking about, and it's the mem becomes a b in how the name of the town is. Saw a woman. Apparently, the Philistine women were not veiled when they walked abroad. Okay. Philistines, at this period, the weakening of Egyptian authority enabled them to develop a spirit of independence, which led to a clash with Israel. Told his father and his mother, marriage was negotiated by the parents, especially the father. 269, to wife. The rabbis held that before the marriage, the woman became a proselyte. They considered it unthinkable that a Nazirite should live with a heathen wife. All right, so the rabbi said, don't worry, this Philistine woman converted. But in the Bible, that's not necessary. Right? Moses has a Midianite wife, and their children are Levites. And so the fact that she's a non-Israelite doesn't matter, doesn't affect the status of the Israelite status of the children. So throughout the Bible, that's the case. It's only at the end of the Bible in Ezra that he changes the rule to the mothers determining the religion of the child. Okay, among the daughters of thy brethren, the objection to intermarriage was deep-rooted, right? So it's not interreligious marriage, it's rather intertribal, right? Yeah, why dilute the tribal ancestry here by marrying a Philistine? We want to keep ourselves Danites.
Because the tribal land holding thing was still in effect, right?
It would be, yes, it would be, but it's I guess it was still felt better. Why not combine land holdings within the tribe, or even if it's from some other tribe within Israel? Why go outside the people? So, daughters of thy brethren, my people, the former probably denotes blood relations, and the latter, Israelites in general. So, in other words, why does it say achecha and ami? Yeah, like your brothers and then my people. So, you could have, there wasn't a Danite woman, there wasn't an Israelite woman, right? Uncircumcised, the epithet seems to have been applied exclusively to the Philistines. The Canaanites, with the exception of the Shechemites, are thought to have practiced circumcision. So that's interesting. Pleaseth me well, literally is right in my eyes. The same idiom with a condemnatory implication occurs in 21. The more usual expression is find favor in one's eyes. And on verse 4, for he sought an occasion against, literally that he would be seeking an occasion from. Modern commentators define he as God, but it's contrary to Hebraic thought that God required an occasion in the circumstances here described. AJ is correct in making Samson the subject, but the phrase should be given its literal translation. The Philistines exercised dominion over Israel, and if Samson, as the representative of his people, attacks some of them, a counterattack would certainly be the sequel. The text states that it was ordained by God that Samson should suffer a personal affront at the hand of some Philistines upon whom he would take revenge as a wronged individual. So it's all part of the plan, whether God ordained it or God needed a reason to intervene, as opposed to God causing the whole thing. It's all part of the plan. Okay, so ancient Israel on these 4 verses, 179. Samson went down to Timnah and saw a woman. The first common noun that appears in the Samson narrative is woman. a word that will be reiterated and that picks up the repeated use of woman in the Annunciation scene. Woman is also the very first word of dialogue assigned to Samson. And for that reason, this translation follows the syntactic order of the Hebrew. My people, some scholars amend this to your people. The uncircumcised Philistines, this is a recurrent epithet for the Philistines, a people of Hellenic origin, and is not used for the Canaanites, who in some instances may have possibly practiced circumcision. The foreskin is an obvious mark of difference, but also focuses a sense of sexual recoil. The Philistine woman, whom Samson would have as a sexual partner, belongs to an uncircumcised people and was begotten by an uncircumcised male. Because she pleases me, the literal sense is because she's right in my eyes. Since there is no indication that Samson has exchanged a single word with the woman, we may infer that his only reason for wanting her as wife is physical attraction, what he has seen. It was from the Lord. The theological explanation is a little shaky. God knows that the only way to get this particular hero to act against the Philistines is to involve him with a woman, which will lead to his being tricked by her countrymen, which then will provoke him to vengeance. It's all about the woman. Okay, we can read a little bit more. I'm not sure, like the break in the text would be at the end of 13. Well, let's see if we can get that far. Vayered Shimshon va'aviv ve'imo Timnata, vayavou ad karmei Timnata, vehine kafir arayot shoeg likrato. So Samson and his father and mother went down to Timnah, and they came to the vineyards of Timnah, and there was a young lion roaring to greet him. So they saw a lion. So there used to be lions in the land of Israel, not anymore. So he saw a young lion roaring at them as they got to the vineyard. So 6, Vatitzlach alav ruach Adonai, vayeshas ehu ke shasa hagedi, umeuma ein biado, velo higid la'aviv ulimo et asher asa. So the Spirit of God, so vatitzlach alav, so it came mightily upon him, and he ripped it apart as one would rip apart a kid, and he had nothing in his hands. So he just did this in his bare hands, like he didn't have a knife. And he didn't tell his parents what he did. So in other words, he's going down with his parents. They arrive at this vineyard, but then what happened? How do they get separated? So the lion is roaring, and he rips it apart. He and kills it that way and doesn't tell his parents. So the question is, where did his parents go? 7, Vayered vayedaber la'isha vatishar be'enei Shimshon. And he went down and talked with the woman, and she pleased Samson well. So in other words, it's another form of the yashar be'enai, vatishar be'enai Shimshon. So she was found to be pleasing to Samson. So maybe he told her about what he just did to the lion, or they were just talking in general. Vayashav miyamim lekachta, vayasar lirot et mapelet ha'aryeh, vehine adat devarim bigviyat ha'aryeh udevash. And after a while, he took her as wife, and he turned aside the carcass of the lion, and there was a swarm of bees in the body of the lion and honey. Vayirdehu el kapav, vayelech haloch ve'achol, vayelech el avi ve'el imo, vayitein lahem vayochelu, V'lo higid lahem ki migviyat ha'aryeh rada hadavash. So he took it in the palm of his hand, and he went and ate it, and then he went to his father and mother and gave them of the honey to eat, and he didn't tell them that the honey came from the body of a lion. You know, this is bizarre, this interchange here. There's some things missing in the story. Like, where were his parents when he took this woman? What happened to them? Were they just hanging out in the vineyard? What's going on here? And then why is he feeding them honey? It's like such a bizarre kind of ritualistic kind of thing. And what's the big deal? Like, why couldn't he tell them that it came from the body of the lion? And then, so.
Doesn't it take time for the bees to make a hive in the?
Right. So it says there was some time before he went back to the lion, but we don't know how long, right? It like the body had a decay and whatever. Vayered Avihu el ha'isha, vayas sham shimshon mishteh, ki ken yasu habichurim. So his father went to the woman, and then he made a party for Samson, because that's what you did with young men. Vayehi kir otam oto, vayikhu shloshim mereim vayu ito. So when they saw him, they brought 30 companions to be with him. Philistine companions, Israelite companions. Vayomer lahem Shimshon, achuda na lachem chida, im haged tagidu otali, shivat yemei hamishte umitzaatem, v'natati lachem shloshim sdinim ushloshim chalifot begadim. So Samson says to them, I'm going to riddle you a riddle, and if you can solve it for me, then we can have 7 days of a party. And if you can declare it me within the 7 days of the feast and find it out. Okay, so solve it within 7 days of the party, if you can. And if you do, I'll give you 30 linen garments and 30 changes of raiment. 13, ve'im lo tuchlu lahagid li, unatatem atem li shloshim stinim, ushloshim chalifot, bigadim, vayomru lo chuda chidatcha v'nishma'ena. So, and if you can't tell me in 7 days, if you can't solve the riddle in 7 days, then you have to give me 30 linen garments and 30 changes of raiment. And they said to him, okay, riddle us the riddle and let's hear it. Okay, so that's to verse 13. Okay, so let's read the commentary here, 5 to 13. So we're on page 270. A young lion. The Hebrew kafir signifies a full-grown cub. Kimchi explains that the lion is known by different Hebrew words at various stages of its growth. Beginning as gur, it becomes successively kfir, aryeh, lavi, and laish. The older it grows, the fiercer it becomes. So it's just interesting that in the Bible there are all these different words for a lion.
Why is lion the Lion of Judah? Why is it a symbol of Israel? Who did that? Who made it so?
It was in Jacob's blessing to his children.
Sons.
Yes. Uh-huh.
And the state of Israel?
State of Israel is not a lion. It's
no, but the symbol, the lion. It's on.
Symbol of Jerusalem is a lion, not the symbol of Israel.
Jerusalem.
Symbol of Israel is the menorah and the olive branch. That's the official symbol for Israel.
I'm just thinking of all the lions we saw.
The lions.
All the lions.
Yeah, that was around the 3,000th anniversary of Jerusalem. against him, not against them, Samson having in his eagerness gone ahead of his parents or taken a bypath through the vineyards while they walked along the high road. Came mightily, Samson felt himself endowed with supernatural strength. Rent him, the root shasa appears in the phrase cloven hoofed. Oh yeah, right. The kind of animal that we're allowed to eat, it has to be cloven hoofed. So that's the idea, split apart. He had nothing in his hand. The intention is to give the information that he rent the lion with his bare hands as evidence of his strength. It's not necessary to suppose that the Philistines had imposed a prohibition on the Israelites against carrying arms. Right, in other words, why didn't he have a weapon? Maybe the Philistines said Israelites aren't allowed to carry. He told not. When he met his parents before reaching Timnah, he did not tell them of his adventure because he did not consider it a great accomplishment. With the woman, the rendering accords Kimchi against the Targum, followed by Rashi, who understands the text as concerning the woman, that is, discussed his proposed marriage with her. Metzudat David and Malbim explain that Samson had conversation with her to find out whether she was intelligent, since hitherto he had only seen her. Hence the continuation, she pleased Samson well. He returned. He had presumably gone home after the interview recorded in the last verse. Now he went back to contract the marriage, right? So see how the commentary has to fill in the gaps here when the text was a little bit odd. He turned aside, an indication that when he met the lion, he was not on the high road. The carcass, literally that which had fallen. Metzudat Sion adds, in the place where it had fallen. In the body, it is reported by travelers in the Arabian desert that the heat in summer dries up the moisture of dead bodies within 24 hours, turning them into mummies which do not emit a bad odor. Bees will not approach a putrid carcass. Scraped or separated. This is an expression of separating anything which is clinging, as bread clinging to an oven. In this sense, the verb radah is used frequently in Mishnaic Hebrew. He came to his father and mother, who were journeying with Samson for the marriage. He left them temporarily to visit the place where he had slain the lion. He told them not, thus he felt secure that no one knew his secret when he proposed the riddle to the Philistines, because the riddle is going to be about the lion. His father went down to complete the negotiations before the marriage took place. So used the young men to do among the Philistines, but not the Israelites. Otherwise, no explanation would have been necessary. Companions to act as groomsmen. Some commentators make the far-fetched suggestion that the 30 men were attached to him by the Philistines to keep watch over his movements, since his strong appearance caused them apprehension. Put forth a riddle, literally riddle a riddle. The word chidah is derived from a root denoting a hidden thing. Hence, I will put forth a statement, the meaning of which is hidden. Others explain it as a legend or a tale. Hence, I will tell you a story which you will be expected to interpret. As a source of entertainment, the riddle was much loved in all ages. See 1 Kings and Ezekiel. The 7 days of the feast, the custom of continuing marriage festivities for 7 days, is already mentioned in Genesis 29 as having been practiced in patriarchal times in Mesopotamia. We practice it today because it's a rabbinical enactment. Right? The idea after a wedding of having Sheva Brachot, not just the 7 blessings under the chuppah, but it's also 7 days of celebration too. Those are called Sheva Brachot too. Linen garments. The noun sadin occurs again in Isaiah 3 and Proverbs 31. It was made of fine linen, rectangular in shape and of considerable size, worn either as an undergarment next to the body or as an outer robe to cover the ordinary clothes. Changes of raiment. Chalifot denotes festive garments as against working garb, often costly and presented as a mark of favor. Okay, so let's look at ancient Israel on this. Just a second here. So we find we're on 180. And look, a young lion came roaring at him. The shift of perspective marked by look is, of course, to Samson's viewpoint. At this moment, though he has been accompanied by his parents, he's clearly separated from them, and they do not witness the killing of the lion. Ehrlich proposes that Samson, as an energetic young man, has bounded far ahead of his parents, who are walking slowly on the path to Timnah. And the Spirit of the Lord seized him. In Samson's case, the divine afflatus enables violent action by the hero and is not the charisma of an ad hoc military leader. All his heroic acts are performed by him alone. He did not tell his father and his mother. Samson has a penchant for secrets, but he gets himself in trouble when he reveals his secrets to women. He went down and spoke to the woman. The verb spoke here, as in some other contexts, is probably a technical term for a proposal of marriage. And he scooped it up with his palms. It should be noted that carcasses are considered to be ritually unclean, so that by taking food from the lion's bones, Samson is violating one of the terms of the Nazirite vow, right? Not to eat impure things. The setting, moreover, is a vineyard, though he does not touch the grapes. That's interesting too, right? To remember that. Companions, they are in effect designated companions for the bridegroom during the 7 days of the feast, though Samson has no personal relationship with them. Find the solution. The Hebrew uses an ellipsis, merely the verb find. I shall give you 30 fine cloths and 30 changes of garment. The confident Samson takes on himself an indemnity and the bet, 30 times that of each of the Philistine men. Okay, so we'll stop here for today.
So he acknowledges those are Philistine men because he
I
didn't
guess so.
reference. Yeah, he
Well,
didn't
Alter
reference
does,
that.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But he doesn't know them well, right? They're
That's
not
what the
friends.
commentary says, right. Right, but who knows? I mean, in talking to the woman, he might have had, how is a strange man allowed to talk to a woman without men giving approval about it? So maybe he did know these men before. We don't know. There's a lot of gaps in the story. So next Friday is Rosh Hashanah. So no class next Friday. We meet 2 weeks from today. Okay, the day of Kol Nidre. Okay.
But he wasn't taking the honey from the bones, because there would have been a hive there.
He scraped the honey from the body of the lion. That's what the text
It's in the
says.
butt. Okay. All right.
Yeah. All right. Take care, everybody.
Okay.
About Shalom.
Thank you.